Hey, this is Pizza Dude Man. After my last video, several people requested that I come up with an official pre-E3 wish roster for Super Smash Bros. For Switch, and seeing as I haven't done anything related to that in over 2 years now, I thought, yeah, okay, that sounds fun. I still get comments pertaining to things like these, so once again, please keep in mind that these opinions are entirely my own. This is not an official roster for Smash Bros. It is also not necessarily an accurate prediction. Rather, it's my own blended idea of both what I'd like to see and what I believe is plausibly realistic. With that out of the way, here is Pizza Dude Man Guy's pre-E3 roster for Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch. So if you've been following me for a long time, you'll probably notice both a lot of similarities to my last roster as well as a lot of differences. Let's start with the size. My last roster was pretty huge, and to be honest, this one isn't that much smaller. Once again, I wanted to make a roster with as many characters as I thought I could get away with, so think of this as an SSP5 roster with all DLC. In actuality, I'm not adding any more characters than the last game added. Smash 4 brought back Dr. Mario, Mewtwo, and Roy, who were previously cut in Brawl, and my roster here brings back Ice Climbers, Wolf, and Snake. Smash 4 also introduced 18 newcomers, not counting the Mii fighters, and my roster also adds 18 newcomers. Now, there's obviously some give and take, but Dr. Mario, Dark Pit, and Lucina took very little development time, whereas all of my additions would be treated as entirely new characters, but the Mii fighters are also like 3 characters, so there's still a bit of balance. Additionally, Smash for Switch is coming out within the second year of the Switch's lifespan, which I have to assume is relatively early, especially compared to when Smash 4 was released on the Wii U. That means there's going to be a lot more time for additional DLC characters. So why don't we finally talk about the characters? Let's start with the veterans. I've opted to bring back every single veteran from Smash 4. Right now, there's a big rumor going on about how all of the veterans are being planned for a return for Smash 5, with one of the main speculations being that Smash for Switch will be heavily borrowing assets from Smash 4, just with updates to certain characters, thus allowing for each veteran to be brought back easily, which makes sense since Smash 4 wasn't that long ago. There's probably not a ton of graphical updates that really need to be made. However, let's say that it turned out all of that was untrue. Even then, I could easily see every veteran from Smash 4 eventually returning. The characters in the Smash 4 lineup are incredibly unique, very well liked, or a regularly appearing veteran in the series at this point, so it's difficult to call any of them prime candidates for getting cut. Even if any of them did get cut, I think all of them would be in high enough demand for a return that they'd come back as DLC down the line. Even when looking at the clones, the easiest targets for cutting, they have their merits. Dr. Mario, like Mewtwo and Roy, is a returning veteran now. Lucina is just such a beloved Fire Emblem character at this point, and Dark Pit, has a cool victory theme. Seriously though, Dark Pit has his fans. I really do believe that every character in Smash 4 is a prime candidate to return. In addition, I opted to bring back Ice Climbers, Wolf, and Snake, who were cut from the previous Smash title. It's generally been accepted that the only reason Ice Climbers were cut was because they couldn't function properly on the 3DS, which shouldn't be a problem anymore. Without that, they're one of the strangest Smash cuts ever, a unique Nintendo veteran representing their own series. We've never seen characters like that get cut before, so most people already believe we will be getting the Ice Climbers back. In the end, Wolf was another disappointing cut. Over the course of Smash 4's DLC, we saw the return of Roy and Lucas, but never Wolf. At this point though, since Smash 4, we've seen the release of an entirely new Star Fox game, Star Fox Zero, as well as the first official release of Star Fox 2 through the Super Nintendo Mini, both of which feature Wolf as a character. Plus, there are pretty strong rumors about this supposed upcoming Star Fox racing game. Regardless of if that's true or not, Wolf's exclusion in Smash 4 has made him one of the most demanded characters for Smash 5. Now, as for Snake, honestly, back in fall, I planned a new roster with the acceptance that I'd have to cut Snake. I didn't think he was feasible since things seemed like they had fallen through between Nintendo and Konami. However, now there's all these big rumors about Simon Belmont being in Smash Bros., and even without that, other sources say that Nintendo and Konami have been working on something together. I'm rolling with it and keeping Snake in my roster because, man, he was such a cool Brawl character. He had a fun and awesome moveset and playstyle, the codec calls were one of the best features of Smash Bros., and that box taunt, it's the best Smash taunt of all time. The basis of Snake's return is rooted in rumors, but for now, I'm going to let that dream live in my heart. Let's get into the newcomers, starting with the Mario characters at the top. First off, I've kept Captain Toad in my roster. I think he has a lot going for him. Toad has always been one of the Mario regulars, and he's by far the longest lived one to not already be playable in Super Smash Bros. In recent years though, he's developed even more of his own identity as Captain Toad, complete with his own game, which is being ported to the Switch, and his own set of abilities. Between these moves and the abilities we already regularly attribute to Toad, I think you can make a really great Toad with a really great moveset. And now, for the first time ever, Pizza Dude Man Guy presents a roster with Waluigi on it! I really think we're at the point now where Waluigi is a prime candidate for consideration. We pretty much have the core Mario cast now, along with some extras, so why not turn to another one of the series regulars, Waluigi? So what if he hasn't appeared in any main Mario game? He gets more than enough exposure through the countless Mario multiplayer games, many of which are just as beloved and enjoyed as any main Mario game. Waluigi is somewhat of an icon to the Mario sports games, having been specifically designed for Mario Tennis, and since then been given special roles in subsequent Mario sports titles. Additionally, we already see Waluigi utilize his tennis racket as an assist trophy, so having a sports-themed Waluigi makes a lot of sense to me. Sure, Peach already references the sports equipment in her moveset, but Waluigi can go all out with the moveset built up of powerful soccer kicks and spinning service shots. Now to me, if Waluigi is included in Smash Bros., I think it only makes sense that Daisy follows not too far behind. Daisy may not have quite the same fan popularity as Waluigi, but otherwise, she's in the same shoes. Both Daisy and Waluigi are characters we've come to expect in pretty much every multiplayer Mario game that exists. Additionally, I have a very clear idea of what Daisy could do in Smash Bros. Fight as an aggro-kinetic. Given her namesake, we often see Daisy utilize special abilities regarding the generation of flowers, and that's something we have yet to see in Smash Bros. I feel like plant manipulation in general is both an interesting and underutilized power in a lot of media, so if it makes sense for Daisy to use, I think it's a really great way to make her a unique Smash Bros. Character. Now, the only thing is, you might be looking at this and saying, Pizza Dude Man, that's a lot of Mario characters. And it is. That being said, Mario is the flagship franchise of Nintendo, and its characters are so widely used and in so many games, I think it makes sense that it have the most. I'd wager there's more people in general who would recognize characters like Daisy and Waluigi through something like Mario Kart than the number of people who recognize some of the really important main characters of other video game series like Ganondorf or King Dedede. Plus, this right here, this Mario roster just looks like the whole package to me. Sure, there are great other Mario candidates for Smash Bros. Like Paper Mario and Geno, who have both been favorites of mine. There will always be great Mario candidates for Smash Bros. But these are the Mario characters that we've come to expect in Mario games. Even if Smash Bros. Doesn't achieve this yet, I'd love to see it achieve this someday. All that said, I do think this is a high number of Mario characters, and I could have cut one or two of them in favor of something like Dixie Kong, or another Pokemon, or something else entirely. I just really wanted to show off this concept for a Mario roster this time. My next newcomer is King K Rool. I have always had King K Rool on my roster, so I don't think there's much I can say I haven't already said for years. I think he's one of Nintendo's most significant historical villains to not be playable in Smash Bros., and that his many appearances as a boss lend themselves to a fantastic moveset. If anything were to hold him back, it's purely that he hasn't been added to Smash Bros. Already, and that he hasn't had any recent major appearances. Despite that, I think this might finally be the time we see him, simply because of the fan demand. A lot of people believe that the results of the Smash Ballot and other official popularity polls are going to have a large hand in determining the newcomers of Smash for Switch, and going by that, King K. Rool is doing extremely well. It would just be nice to see the definitive Donkey Kong villain again. I know a lot of people are hopeful for an appearance in future DK titles. On top of that, I'd just love to see more Donkey Kong characters in Smash Bros. In general. Given the historical value of the Donkey Kong series to Nintendo, the large amount of memorable and interesting characters in the series, and the fact the series has seen a big comeback in recent years, it's very strange to me that the only playable ones in Smash so far are DK and Diddy. I would love to see a lot more Donkey Kong characters in Smash Bros. In the future, but for now, my favorite is and always has been King K. Rool. And now, Fire Emblem! Okay, first of all, I know there were a lot of people who thought Fire Emblem got too many characters in the last Smash game, but honestly, I feel like it's justified now. It's a series that's been running since the NES, each title stars an entirely different cast of characters, and the series has gained so much more exposure in these recent years than it's ever had before. I would not be surprised one bit if we got a couple Fire Emblem newcomers in Smash Bros. For this roster, I've decided to add Celica, but to be honest, I kinda have her there mostly as a placeholder. See, I don't like having gaps in my roster, but given what we've seen with Fire Emblem editions in the past, I'm almost expecting whatever upcoming new Fire Emblem protagonist we have as a DLC character in the future, so I needed space for a Fire Emblem newcomer. That being said, I do believe Celica has her merits and is a possibility. Celica is a well-liked Fire Emblem character who recently featured in Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, a remake of the second Fire Emblem game. Now, we don't actually know how Smash Bros. Will treat Fire Emblem remakes, since the previous remakes have been games that star Marth, who's already in Smash Bros. Perhaps they will treat Echoes as the latest installment and prioritize Celica as a newcomer. Additionally, Celica is playable in Fire Emblem Warriors, with the special distinction of being one of the few characters to not originate from Shadow Dragon, Awakening, or Fates, and I think she would have a particularly unique moveset for Smash Bros., utilizing her own magical abilities separate from Robin's. All that said, I could see Fire Emblem going several different directions in Smash Bros. Maybe they'll add Lyn, who has always been a popular Fire Emblem character and has her own unique sword style, or Anna, who is an iconic face of the series and could have a moveset built on archery and trick staves. Or maybe they'll follow through with their joke from Smash 4 and include Chrom, who fits along nicely with Robin and Lucina and also had a fairly prominent role in Fire Emblem Warriors. There's so many possibilities, it's impossible to include them all and difficult to predict and prioritize. I like Celica, but I also want to see where the series is headed. It's been a long time since we've had a console Fire Emblem, so I think this new one might be a big deal. Next up, we've got The Legend of Zelda. For the longest time, I've had some variation of Toon Zelda, usually Tetra, on my roster because I like the idea of Toon Link having a partner. Our Zelda lineup has consisted of Link, Zelda, Sheik, and Ganondorf, who are all from the same realistic-ish looking timeline, and Toon Link, who's all by himself. I like the concept of Tetra as a Smash Bros. Character, utilizing a pirate-themed moveset. Plus, I think she's just a great character, and Wind Waker is still my favorite Zelda game. In a lot of ways, she might very well still be my favorite pick. However, I used to believe that there were so many standout Zelda characters you could justify adding any one of them to Smash Bros., and while that's still true, I honestly feel like we've reached a point where Impa is clearly the most significant. Out of the many wonderful and interesting Zelda characters, Impa is the only one outside of the Triforce trio to regularly appear throughout the series. Zelda usually has a caretaker, friend, or bodyguard named Impa. And yes, Impa has always had this role, with it feeling most prominent in Ocarina of Time as the Sage of Shadow, but it feels to me like that role has been built up more and more. Skyward Sword gave Impa more prominence in the story and even had her showcase some special abilities, and Hyrule Warriors features Impa as one of the main characters and gives her a very defined, unique fighting style. Even if this game is non-canon, the type of weaponry Impa uses fits into the style of the Sheikah in Breath of the Wild, of which Impa is the leader. And although Impa's role in this game isn't as active per se, she's still present, and the concept of the Sheikah itself is much more accented. This is our first time seeing a true Sheikah society in a Zelda game, and because of this, we see a lot more of their ninja-like abilities throughout the battles that take place in the game, as well as the abilities of the Sheikah Slate and the Guardians, which are researched by the Sheikah. What I'm getting at is, I think Impa actually has a lot to work with to make a fun and versatile moveset between Hyrule Warriors weapons, shadow magic, ninja abilities from Breath of the Wild, and other special abilities from Breath of the Wild. Now, Impa is far from the only feasible choice for a Zelda newcomer in Smash Bros. There's always been fan-favorite picks like Skull Kid and Midna, and I even think Tingle could be a great newcomer using the abilities presented in his own line of games. A lot of people are also considering the champions from Breath of the Wild. I only worry that they won't have a long-standing impact on the series. But they all have unique abilities and fighting styles that would make them great Smash Bros. Characters, especially considering that they could represent abilities of the Zelda races they come from as a whole. They all have their strengths. Mipha is closely tied to Link, wields a trident, and could use other Zora abilities. Daruk comes with a big heavy weapon and could use all the really cool Goron abilities. Urbosa is a badass, and Rivali has a cool theme song. It would be an absolute dream to me if somehow they could all make it in, but I just don't see that feasibly happening, and it's tough for me to pick one over the other. One last thing. I know it's one of the complaints I have always had in these videos, but man, they have got to do something about Ganondorf. This is one of the biggest villains in video game history, and right now, I still can't help but think of his Smash Bros. Moveset as just a heavy Captain Falcon. Why isn't he doing what Ganondorf is supposed to do? Why doesn't he fly, shoot magic, and wield swords? I don't even think you have to completely revamp him. Just give him some range on his attacks by launching dark waves of energy or elongate his arms with a sword. One compromise I like is adding the traditional Ganon as a separate newcomer. You know, Pig Ganon with the trident and the plethora of magical abilities. I mean, we see this form of Ganon just as much, if not more, than Ganondorf, so I think it makes sense. However, I don't think there's a big fan base clamoring for the addition of Pig Ganon in Smash Bros. The bottom line with Zelda is, this is one of Nintendo's most prominent, beloved series. It's very well known for its great characters, and we haven't had a true newcomer since Melee. Yes, we gained Toon Link and Brawl, but that was pretty much a direct replacement of Young Link, so it doesn't feel especially new. With all these amazing character choices, I just want to see somebody. Don't leave Zelda behind when it has so many great characters. My next newcomer is Ridley! Like K Rool, this guy has always been on my rosters. He's one of Nintendo's biggest villains to not already be playable in Smash, and he's easily and by far the second most important character to the Metroid series. Despite being omitted from previous Smash games due to his shape and size, he has had a huge fan following, and now there are many rumors that they have found a way to make him work in Smash Bros. And that he will be playable. These are just rumors for now, but I'd still like Ridley too. In my last roster video, I talked about the possibility of a newcomer from Metroid Prime 4, namely Celica, since we were unsure about the release date of either of these titles. However, since we now know Smash is coming first, that seems like an impossibility, unless it comes to pass as DLC. My last roster video also featured a Kirby newcomer, which I just didn't prioritize this time. If Kirby Star Allies has proven anything, it's that there's a ton of great Kirby characters, and plenty of them would be great Smash newcomers. Personally, I still feel Bandana Waddle Dee makes the most sense, but I've seen several others get thrown around. However, I'm also still satisfied with Kirby King Dedede and Meta Knight. I can totally understand the appeal of Kirby and Kirby characters, it's just not my favorite. I haven't really changed up my retro character picks. I have no reason to believe that they won't keep up this tradition, and I really like the idea of bringing back older Nintendo characters as a surprise. My favorite pick is still Takamaru, and I'm glad to see he's gotten so much support recently. I'm a sucker for samurai. It's probably my favorite romanticized martial class, and the katana fighting style is very distinct from the other sword styles we've already seen in Smash Bros. Plus, Takamaru has plenty of special abilities to build a moveset out of. Additionally, I threw in the Excite Biker as an off-the-wall surprise. It might not quite fit into the same theme as Game & Watch Rob and Duck Hunt, maybe we'll get something much weirder, but it's an idea I like that I think is unexpected enough to fit the bill. Honestly, I sort of feel like the point of the surprise character is not to be able to guess who it is, so I just picked one I like. And now, Pokemon. It's pretty hard to tell what could actually happen. In both Brawl and Smash 4, we had a new generation that seemed fairly obvious they would want to showcase. In Brawl, that came in the form of Lucario. In Smash 4, it was Greninja. For this game, well, it's different. Sun and Moon have been out for a while, so people have had a lot more time to have spread ideas on what should be added. Some people are pushing for Lycanroc since it has been a heavily promoted Pokemon, particularly through its role in the anime and the fact it was given a unique, special form between Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Plus, it's Rock type, which is something new to Smash Bros. Others believe Mimikyu is the best choice. It's proven to be one of the most popular new Pokemon of its generation. It was given a special Z move in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and its Ghost Fairy typing gives it lots of options to make a creative moveset. But personally, my favorite is still Decidueye. The initial choice of Decidueye on my roster 2 years ago was very much in anticipation. Sun and Moon were brand new at that point. However, I apparently wasn't the only one, seeing as Decidueye was chosen to become playable in Pokken Tournament Deluxe. However, since then, Decidueye hasn't had the same promotion as Lycanroc, nor has it had the same popularity as Mimikyu. In fact, the official popularity poll places it lower than Incineroar and Primarina. However, Rowlet is very popular, so maybe that'll be Decidueye's saving grace? Here's the thing, Decidueye really is my favorite pick. I feel like one of the big events of Pokemon that everyone experiences is that initial choice of choosing between grass, fire, and water, and unlike Pokemon games in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, we don't currently have that choice in Smash Bros. Given what an icon Charizard is and how Greninja has been given a completely unique transformation exclusively special to it and only it, I'm certain we'll see both of them in the next Smash Bros. Game, which still leaves us without a grass starter. And even if Decidueye isn't as popular as the other 7th gen starters, I still feel like he stands out among grass starters, especially in the context of Smash Bros. He comes with an archery-based fighting style, which we don't have much of, and he's also a ghost type, which is pretty cool. It just kinda sucks to hear that his chances in Smash Bros. Aren't as locked in as I hoped, because I pretty much always pick the grass starter in Pokemon games. Trico is my favorite starter of all time, and Sceptile is my favorite Pokemon. I loved using Decidueye through Sun and Moon, just like I loved using my Torterra, Serperior, and Chestnut. I just want to be able to make that choice in Smash Bros. Again, and I think Decidueye is a great pick for that. I suppose Rowlet would work too, I just feel like Decidueye would be more fitting as both a Smash character and a parallel to Charizard and Greninja. Now, all of this has been under my own roster where I've only allowed space for one new Pokemon. However, every Smash game has added multiple Pokemon characters, so maybe we'll see even more. Maybe we'll have Decidueye and some other Sun Moon Pokemon, or maybe we'll have a different grass starter after all. Maybe they'll eventually add an 8th gen Pokemon as DLC when that rolls around, or maybe it's possible they'll add Eevee, seeing as it's always been a prominent Pokemon that now has its name on a game all of its own. The bottom line is, as always, Pokemon is a huge series with literally hundreds of great possibilities for Smash Bros. Characters, and the only thing I feel is inevitable is that they'll continue to add more. It's just a matter of who, and for me, I'm gonna keep rolling with Decidueye for now. Now then, I've kind of beefed up the Xenoblade section by adding both Elma and Rex as newcomers. However, I don't think that's all that strange. We've seen it in the past with both Kirby and Kid Icarus. In context, I think it makes a lot of sense. I see a lot of people adding Rex to their Smash rosters, and yeah, that makes sense. Even if it's as DLC, I can completely understand adding Rex as a newcomer from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, given that he has his own abilities and fighting style separate from Shulk by utilizing blades like Pyra. I've seen multiple suggestions for how Rex could work, but to be honest, I haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 yet, and I haven't looked much into it in case I decide to. Even so, I think Rex is a very possible newcomer. It's pretty much just like how Ness and Lucas are from Mother 2 and Mother 3, Shulk and Rex are from Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. However, I really don't want Xenoblade Chronicles X to get buried under all this. I did play that game, and I loved it. I would totally buy it again if they re-released it on the Switch just so I could experience it again. Traditionally, having someone from Xenoblade Chronicles X would be more in line with the kind of newcomers we see in Super Smash Bros. For instance, Captain Olimar was in Brawl on the Wii after the success of Pikmin on the GameCube. Shulk was in Smash 4 on 3DS and Wii U after Xenoblade Chronicles came out on the Wii. So I could see Xenoblade Chronicles X being the next natural progression. The thing about Xenoblade Chronicles X is that your main character is an avatar character. That's obviously not a problem within itself, but your avatar character doesn't really get any unique abilities that aren't already used by the rest of the game's cast, and the story is far more driven by your party members, most notably Elma. Most people agree that Elma would be the best pick from X as a Smash Bros. Character. She's pretty much the leader of your group, and a lot of the game's story and backstory revolves around her, and she comes with a dual sword, dual gun fighting style that I think would be especially interesting in Smash Bros. I really hope Elma makes it. She's definitely one of my most wanted. As for completely new Nintendo characters, the Inklings have been officially confirmed. Haha, called it! Just like everyone else. Seriously, they were one of the most predictable newcomers of all time, and I'm really excited to see what they do with their movesets and what other assets we'll see from Splatoon and Smash Bros. Since my last roster video, ARMS has been released, and I almost immediately decided I wanted to see Springman in Smash Bros. I don't think it's an inevitability by any stretch. ARMS is a brand new series, so I can see the developers being hesitant to include someone from its roster into Smash Bros. Without knowing what the reception would be first. It's not like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 where the character is coming from an already known and successful series. ARMS is a completely new thing. However, I do think ARMS has done a good job of establishing itself as Nintendo's new original fighting game, and I'd like to see it cross over with Nintendo's crossover fighting game, Super Smash Bros. Springman is pretty much the poster child of the series, like Captain Falcon to F-Zero, so I think he clearly makes the most sense as the ARMS character to join Smash Bros. His abilities may not be as extensive as some of the other characters in ARMS, but as far as Smash Bros. Is concerned, the mere concept of having a character with extending arms as their main fighting style is unique to Smash Bros. Besides that, the main feature of ARMS is the customization of the weapons each character is wielding on their fists, and any ARMS character can do that. With those in mind, not only do I believe Springman makes as much sense as any other ARMS character, I think he makes the most sense. I think he's the obvious choice. Plus, Springman is my personal favorite. I'm a Springman main. He's totally my type of character, the Little Mac of the game. Amongst all these characters with special abilities, he's the one that's just the most into the fighting. Lastly, just like my previous roster video, I have a Rhythm Heaven character in the form of Karate Joe. I think any Rhythm Heaven character is the next possible step from Villager or Wii Fit Trainer. Like Animal Crossing, Rhythm Heaven has become a somewhat established Nintendo series that simply hasn't had a playable character in Smash Bros. Yet, prior to Villager's inclusion. And just like Wii Fit Trainer, I think any Rhythm Heaven character addition would be somewhat surprising. I think any Rhythm Heaven character would utilize some kind of timing-based fighting style given the nature of Rhythm Heaven games, and could use moves that are references to the series' many wacky scenarios. As for the specific character choice, I think it comes down more to personal preference. Karate Joe is my favorite because, unlike many of the Rhythm Heaven characters, he has appeared in a minigame in every single installment of Rhythm Heaven. Additionally, his minigame was the very first one in the very first Rhythm Heaven game, and he comes with an established fighting style. I can see why people might prefer some of the other potential candidates, such as Tap Trial Girl, who is something of a mascot to the series, or the Chorus Kids, who were possibly considered for Smash Bros. Previously. It just so happens that Karate Joe is my favorite, so that's who I picked. The final section is the third-party characters. I actually wound up not adding too many. Smash 4 already added quite a bit, so these are just some personal favorites. I already talked about Snake, but really, that's stemming from a big rumor about Simon Belmont being a newcomer in Smash. I've wanted to see Simon Belmont as a Smash newcomer for a long time. To me, he would be the next Mega Man. This is a character whose series has a huge historical significance to Nintendo, and the series has never really died down. Simon would use his iconic whip as his main weapon, something that would be a new fighting style introduced into Smash Bros., and could use Castlevania's various sub-weapons to flesh out his special moves. I'd also love a Dracula's Castle stage for Super Smash Bros., who would include so much great music. I know my next pick seems pretty odd, but it's the Dragon Warrior from the Dragon Quest series. People have made fun of the statement, but it really is true. Dragon Quest is just as big of a series as Final Fantasy, especially in Japan. It's run since the NES, it's had many installments, and it's had a lot of successful spin-off games. I think including one of the main heroes from the games is the best way to showcase all of what Dragon Quest is all about. You can build a really fantastic moveset out of his various potential weapons, special abilities, magic, and perhaps even additional referential abilities. I know a lot of people see Slime as the mascot of the Dragon Quest series, but even though it could be a really fun Smash character, I just don't think he can do the same things the main hero can do. As for the hero himself, I previously used the hero from Dragon Quest VIII simply because I thought he stood out. This time I'm using the original Dragon Warrior since he wears that iconic Dragon Warrior armor, and I think it looks cool. If you really wanted something more definitive with a name attached, you could go with Erdrick, the hero of Dragon Quest III, who is also the most referenced hero. Whatever the case, I just really like the idea of playing as a Dragon Quest hero in Smash Bros., and I didn't want to give that idea up. My final third-party character pick is my most wanted newcomer for Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch, Rayman. I grew up with the 3D Rayman games and only recently got back into the series through Rayman Legends. These games are amazing, and they showcase what a great character Rayman is. He has plenty of fun abilities to make a good moveset out of, and he's already referenced in Super Smash Bros. It feels like he's so close, I just want him to finally make it all the way. I don't have much more to say. I feel like Rayman would be a great Super Smash Bros. Character from every angle. I could go on and on about third-party characters. There's so many good options out there, it'd be impossible for me to include them all or even address them all. I wanted to point out Crash Bandicoot in particular because I have a lot of friends who want to see it happen. Just like any good third-party pick, Crash has many of his own abilities from his own games to make a good Smash moveset out of, and it'd probably be one of the closest additions we could have to reach that same level of Sonic the Hedgehog, a really big video game icon, formerly a rival of Nintendo, now joining the ranks of Smash Brothers. It sounds epic. The problem is, I didn't grow up with Crash. In fact, I've still never played a Crash game, so I simply didn't think to put him on my own roster. If he does happen though, that would be awesome. I also wanted to address Shovel Knight and Shantae, who were on my last roster. I really like both these characters, and the games they come from. I simply like the third-party characters I picked here even more. I still think they would both be great Smash Bros. Characters. The last thing I want to mention is, I actually hope they flesh out the Miis even more. I never cared too much about being able to play as Miis in Smash Bros. Until I played Miitopia. Now I'm more interested in the Miis than I ever was before. I hope they'll take a lot of inspiration from this game in terms of the abilities and attacks the Miis use in Smash Bros. And with that, that's my pre-E3 2018 roster for a Super Smash Bros. Game for Nintendo Switch. Now it's time to wait and see what actually happens. Maybe I'll update again in the future as we get more info, or perhaps I'll report on official announcements again. In the meantime, as an homage to my old Super Smash Bros. Videos, here are my concepts for each individual character's victory theme. Thanks for watching, see you next time.